Dr. Jacques Valle was the inspiration for the French UFO researcher in Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
N'avez-vous pas fait récemment une rencontre?
Have you recently had a close encounter?
In real life, Dr. Valle conducted sober scientific research on the phenomenon.
We know now that there is no simple answer.
For decades, he met with witnesses and traveled the globe gathering evidence, ultimately creating the first database on the UFO subject.
Jacques Valle, you have been studying this most of your life.
Too long.
Too long. We discussed it last night at dinner, that your interest in this came from an experience that you actually had as a child. You actually saw a UFO.
As a teenager, with two other witnesses, one of the witnesses was half a mile away with binoculars. So I'm pretty sure that that object was real, and it was a classic disc, middle of the afternoon, clear sky, absolutely clear. At the time, I became convinced that it might be a prototype of something that would be coming out later, and we're here many years later, and we still don't have anything like that. It was just hovering, and it was there.
And you've been studying this for so long, and this was something you guys talked about in the film, that you were actually the character that the French UFO researcher in Close Encounters of the First Kind, or the Third Kind rather, was modeled after. The Steven Spielberg film.
Spielberg was intrigued with the idea of a character that was not quite as weird as, the ETs, but was a lot weirder than, the people on the ground in the U.S. trying to make sense of this in the military and so on. So he needed this intermediate character. He thought, Frenchman was the right thing to do.
And so did you talk to him about the film? Did you talk to him about when he was putting it together? And
yeah, a journalist put us together when about halfway through the final shooting of the film, and there were gaps in the movie at that point, and we had lunch twice together, and it was a lot of fun. He was, at the time, he was looking for a transition between the time when they know the big thing is coming, the mothership is coming, and they don't know where. And the mothership is sending signals, but they can't decipher the signals. And he said, he had spent the morning at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, and he said he couldn't make any sense of all the mathematics they had. And I said, well, maybe you could have, two screens that give you an angle, and the angle tells you where the thing is. And he said, no, that's too complicated, and takes too long. It's got to be just a few minutes in the film. And then I thought of a photograph that was on the desk of Dr. Hynek, Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was the Air Force consultant on UFOs at the time, and I was working with him, building databases and so on. And on that photograph, there were three guys, really well-dressed on ladders around a huge sphere of the earth in the lobby of some building somewhere with pieces of string that they were putting the string over the earth. And I told Dr. Hynek, I said, Alan, what's the story behind this? And he said, well, when the first Sputnik was launched, October 57, nobody had a computer program to compute an orbit, but they knew where the Sputnik had been seen. Nobody expected the Russians to come up with this, and they needed to know where it was going next. So the New York Times called the director of Harvard Observatory saying, can you give us a comment on the Russian satellite? And the guy said, hey, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, what Russian satellite? And so they got dressed in a hurry, and they were trying to compute the orbit by putting a string around the model of the Earth in the lobby of Harvard. And I thought it was so funny. And Spielberg said, that's it, that's it. The general says, come on, the geographer who is the interpreter of a French guy, says, well, it looks like it's somewhere in Wyoming, but where in Wyoming? Where should we go? And the general says, you mean we've got $10 billion worth of radar and, cameras and everything else? Nobody's got a map of Wyoming? And they break into the lobby of the building next door, and they come back with this globe. And, and they've got the globe, and they look at it and get the coordinates. And because it turns out the geographer tells them, those signals, they look like a longitude and a latitude. So they get the point where it's going to be. And that was a piece that was missing in the movie. So I was really proud of that. It was really fun. Well, also, it's the one funny part in the movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie, and it is probably the movie that got me most excited about UFOs when I was a kid. And I remember thinking, if UFOs were coming here from another planet, one thing that I remember thinking is, why would they even bother talking to the government? Like, what do they care who the government is? Like, if I was looking at an ant colony, I'm not going to ask the ant colony which one's the elected official that's in charge of all the other ants. You don't give a shit. You're just like trying to study the ants. And I felt like if something was coming here from another planet that was so sophisticated it could either travel from another dimension or travel from another galaxy, why would it care, like, who the president is or who the generals are?
Not only that, but the witnesses don't talk to the government either. By now the witnesses are tired of being ridiculed by scientists and and told that those things don't exist. So they don't talk. So they'll talk to, people like you, people like me, because they trust, they trust me. And in Silicon Valley, you wouldn't believe the number of people who come to me, including CEOs of companies that I've worked with, who tell me about sightings that people in their family have had or sightings they had, including, sightings in Vietnam, for example, and so on, when they were in the military, that have never been reported. And the government isn't getting that.
Indianapolis, Aries 31 has traffic 2 o'clock, slightly above.
Can you say aircraft type?
Negative, Center. No distinct outline. Tell you the truth, the target is rather brilliant. Wait a second. He's heading right for my windshield. The traffic is approaching head-on. Ultra bright and really moving. And right by us, right now. That was really close.
31, do you wish to file a report of any kind of it?
I wouldn't know what kind of report to file, Center.
This is nuts. What do you want?
I just want to know that it's really happening. We recently had a close encounter. A close encounter with something very unusual.
Who are you people? I've been seeing this shape. Damn it, I know this. I know what this is. This means something. What did you expect to find? An answer.